spirit of Christmas past. And this is a tale of Ebenezer Scrooge, but it's also a story about all of us. To truly understand someone, you must first understand their past. So that is where we begin today, with a reminder of how Ebenezer came to be this way. Welcome to Shoreline's A Christmas Carol.
I can still hear my father's voice. Money is the most important thing in life. And if you want real money, you are going to have to really work for it. I was 10 when I learned that lesson. I learned quickly how difficult life is without money. You can buy almost anything with money, and the things you can't buy, bah, you're probably better off without. After all, money is the most important thing in life. Bah, humbug! To compromise is weakness, no? To pander, a lack of conviction. I may be alone, but only because others cannot stomach the truth. And besides, spare me the pain. More people, more opinions. More opinions, more mess. And the last thing I'm willing to entertain is mess. Still, does my solitude serve me well? If it's between the mess and the miser, experience favors the miser every time. And I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I may not be surrounded by company, but I don't care. Only the weak need the validation of relationship.
You might know this, but family's not an emotionally neutral subject, you know. In other words, when you hear the word father, there's an emotion attached to that word. When you hear the word mom or sister or brother or younger sister or older sister, there's some kind of emotional response attached to it. Those are emotional words. So one of the worst things that we can do when it comes to family is to say, I don't care. I don't care. And that's where we are with Scrooge. Because of the disappointments of the past, the hurts, as a protective measure, he tells himself, I don't care. I don't care. And after a while, he actually starts to believe that, because when you tell yourself something for so long, you actually start believing it. And when we do that, those are the first words of our journey of becoming Scrooge. I haven't talked to my father in years. I don't care. My mother dropped out of the scene. I don't really care. My oldest brother embarrassed the family when he ripped off our grandparents, so I don't care about him. No one knows where my sister is. I don't care. Mom's with another guy. I don't care. As a pastor, I talk to a lot of people who say this when it comes to their father or their mom or something like that. You know, I used to care, but it got so emotionally complicated. It was so difficult that when it comes to my dad, when it comes to her, when it comes to him, I just don't care anymore. So one of the most harmful lies that you can tell when it comes to members of your family, especially your father or your mother or your brother or sister, I really don't hear that when I talk to parents who aren't talking to their kids. I don't hear them say they don't care. But as a pastor, I hear it a lot about dads. You know, Eric, when it comes to my dad, I just don't care. I want you to understand today that you were born to care. You were created to care. In fact, if you don't care, there's something wrong with you. And you might go, no, Eric. When you hear my story, you're going to realize there's something wrong with them. And I get it. There probably is. But you were born to care. You were created to care. Now, here's the problem. Is that you can say, I don't care anymore, and you can run, and you can turn your back, and you can move away. But the problem is that it's like there's a bungee cord attached to your back. And one day, when you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, you live in another part of the country, you've got your own family, you're doing your own thing. For some reason, whatever that is, that cord is like pulls you back into that situation, into that relationship again, and all those emotions come flooding back. You may live in a different house, different part of the country, you've got your own family, but all those emotions come back, and you don't know what to do with them, so you medicate or you drink or do whatever it is you do to stuff those problems in your family's like, what's wrong with you? But you're in such an emotional fog that you can't see straight, so you say, you're what's wrong with me. And the same thing that happened to your family years ago with your parents or your brother or your sister now starts happening with your current family, your current spouse, and you find yourself starting to say those three words, I don't care. And like Scrooge, you tell yourself long enough those lies, and you'll begin to believe it. And somewhere along the way, you try to convince yourself that you don't care, but the problem is you were created to care. Now, as long as we have family, we're going to have conflict. That was a good place to amen, right? Now, today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at something that combined with last week's talk, and if you weren't here last week, I encourage you to watch it, in terms of practicality, can go a long way with helping your relationships for this present Christmas. Because we're going to discover that there's only one source of conflict. Now, there's lots of sources. There's lots of ways you deal with conflict. There's lots of responses to conflict, how you approach conflict. But just like Scrooge in the story Christmas Carol, he's the source of conflict. There's only one source of conflict in your family. And what I'm going to do is I want to try to pull some of the past into the present. And I believe that if your family can wrap their brain around this concept, the tension and the conflict that you might experience during the holidays or maybe on a regular basis I think it'll diminish almost instantly. And you'll never have to lie to yourself, I don't care. You'll never have to say that again. Now, to do that, we're going to have to call in the brother of Jesus. His name is James. And James wrote a little epistle about 2,000 years ago, and he introduces us to this profound relational concept and we're gonna just jump into this concept right off the bat, and he introduces it in the form of a question. And the question goes like this: what causes all the fights and quarrels among you? What causes all the fights and quarrels among you? Now, if I was a brave man, or a sadistic man, however you say that word, what I would do is I would ask you right now to turn to your family and discuss what causes all the fights and quarrels among you. And I'd just sit back and watch and have fun. Because you know what would happen? Fights and quarrels would break out among you. Because you go, he causes the fights and quarrels among us. My husband doesn't care about anything but himself. Well, my wife spends too much money. Our son, he won't get a job. She's always wearing my clothes. He never puts anything away, and he leaves every cabinet door open in the whole kitchen. If they would just clean their room, you know what? If everyone would just do as I say, there would be peace in our family.
Alas, I found the common thread in all of my troubles. Other people. I have yet to spill a glass of wine. I have yet to tell a boring story. I have yet to break a promise. I have yet to overstay my welcome. But other people. I have 99 problems, but this Brit ain't one. Now, if I cannot rely on the trustworthiness of others, I will simply continue a conversation with my own reflection, eliminate the variables of pain.
Phew. So Let me tell you something that you probably already know, but I don't think Scrooge knows this. And I think I have to tell you this so that we can move forward. And it's this. As long as you blame others for your unhappiness, you will always be unhappy. Think about that. As long as you blame others for your unhappiness, you will always be unhappy. If you personally blame someone for your unhappiness, it's him, it's her, it's them. You know what you're doing? Is you're actually taking your happiness and you're giving it to the person you're in conflict with. I can't stand you, so what I would like to do is to give you my happiness, and I want you to hold on to it until you decide that whatever you need to do so I can be happy one day. I mean, because think about this. If I were to ask you, how many of you would like to take your happiness and give control over your happiness to the person you're in conflict with? Nobody would do that, right? But as long as we're in this cycle, this constant cycle of, well, if he would do this, if she would do this, if he really cared, if they really cared, what you're doing is you're taking your happiness and you're handing it over to the person you're in conflict with, saying, I can't be happy until they do something differently. And no one would do that on purpose, would they? So until we understand what James is about to share with us, you will always be handing your happiness over to the person you're in conflict with. Now, this may happen a little bit at work or on the ball field, or especially when you're driving in Destin, but it happens a lot with family. In fact, some of you are here right now and you'd say that your life is unhappy, and I bet there's a good chance if we looked, there's some relational problems going on at home. And it's hard to learn, but it's necessary. Blame never accomplishes anything, because by blaming, ultimately, you're giving your happiness away to the person that you're in conflict with. And part of refusing to do what James is going to tell us today is exactly that. So we're going to take a look at what James has to say, but I'm going to tell you up front, some of you are going to really resist this. Some of you are going to push back. In fact, some of you are going to argue with me the whole time I'm talking. Now, if I can find where in this book I put it. Oh, this is going to have to change for the next service. Oh, there it is. Here we go. We're going to start with James chapter 1. And he actually says, in chapter 4, in verse 1, he says what I asked you earlier. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Now, you'd think that's a general question. In other words, the answer to that is as varied as many people in the room. Well, it just depends what he did, what she did. But James would say, no, that's not what causes fights and quarrels. In fact, if you say that, it's because you don't understand the source. He says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? In other words, don't the fights and the quarrels that you get involved with ultimately come from inside you? And to which we would say, no, the fights and quarrels ultimately come from inside them. And James would say, no, there's a common source for all your conflict, and it's something inside you. It's a desire that's within you that is spilling out on the people around you. That's the source of your conflict. There's a conflict in you that's creating a conflict around you, but that conflict is inside you. In fact, just take a moment and think about your most recent argument. Some of it might be on the way to church this morning, right? And if we stopped and asked that question right there to ourselves, what's causing the fight that I'm in right now? Is it something that's coming within me? I bet it would take the temperature level down of your conflict in your family. He goes, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Verse 2, you desire, but you do not have. So every time there's a conflict, it's because you want something. Whenever there's a conflict with anyone in your family, it's because there's something you want. To which you might say, no, Eric, you don't get it. He promised me. She made a vow. I know, we're going to get there. But every time there's a conflict with someone in your family, it's because there's something that you want that you don't have. He says you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. Now, James is talking to church people, okay? He's not writing to people on death row. He's not talking to people in prison. But he is using hyperbole that is very relevant when it comes to family. James says there are things that you want so badly that you are willing to hurt the people that you care about the most to get it. And you know what? You've seen that before. You've seen parents kill their relationship with their kids because their kids wouldn't do what they wanted them to do. In fact, some of you left home when you were 17, 18, 19 because you couldn't stand to be around your parents anymore. And if I were to interview your parents, the ones who drove you off and destroyed your relationship, if I were to interview them, the bottom line is behind all the agony and the tears and the pain and the yelling, it's because they wanted you to do something, they wanted you to be something, they wanted you to behave a certain way, and you wanted them to stop doing something, and it killed your relationship. You've seen it before. You've seen men belittle their kids to a point where they have no confidence in themselves. Dads criticize their sons to where they can't do anything right. Moms destroying the potential in their daughters because they place certain expectations on them. Parents shaming their children to a point where they don't want to be around mom and dad. Because when you want something from someone, your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad, and you want it bad enough, and you lose perspective, and you don't understand this concept of what James is telling us, that desire to get something, that you want something from them or out of them, and sometimes we want it because we feel better about ourselves, but if you want something long enough and bad enough, you have the potential to destroy the relationship. And in the process, we defend ourselves by saying, well, I just want the best for them. I just want my husband to reach his potential. I just want my wife to reach her potential. I just want the best for my kids. But you lie to yourself, because it's not about them, it's about you. It's about what you want. It's about what I want. Do you know why we hurt the people closest to us the most? Because they're the people closest to us, right? Why is it that your conflict is the very person that you made vows to? Why is it that your biggest conflict is to the ones you brought into the earth? Because they're the ones that are closest to you, and you want something from them, and you want it so badly, James says that you are willing to destroy them. And then we tell ourselves, it's them, and James says, no, it's you. Just pause for a second. Just think about this. What would happen this Christmas in our homes if we just owned this one idea? He says, you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. So now we're right back where we restarted. James says, the quarrels and fights that start among you, why? Because you're going, why can't my family get along? And he tells you, because you desire and you want something and you can't get it.
Microphone pack, that's what I'm missing something. There's a missing component here. What is this unrest, this knot in my soul that won't unwind? I've trusted my mind for so long. Do I dare trust my spirit? What am I doing? I'm losing control. I feel like I'm losing my grip.
Hello, Evie.
Evie?
Got my pet name for you.
Who are you?
I'm the spirit of Christmas present, of course.
I know that song. My mother used to play that song.
And you used to dance to it, Eddie. I have much to show you.
Spirit, I've been thinking about this. I know that I've been missing out. I've been living a fraction of a life, but I'm afraid. This lesson is futile. I wish somebody would have shown me this years ago.
Come with me, Eddie. I have a few things to teach you, and many things to remind you of.
I have some things to show you so that you don't end up saying what Scrooge said. I wish someone would have showed me this years ago. See, if you take last week's application, and apply it to this, and they're both so simple, it's laughable. But here it is. What if in the middle of conflict or before one starts, that you actually pause and recognize, you know what part of the problem is here? I'm not getting what I want. You know what part of the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. Imagine if during the middle of a conflict, you're going at it with your kids or your parents or your siblings or your spouse, that you could recognize, you know what part of the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. I'm telling you, it'd be a game changer. It's a game changer for Darlene and myself. We do it all the time. It's mainly her. No, just think about it. As you're presenting all your points, because that's what we do, is we present our points on why we're right and they're wrong. What if we stopped as we're presenting a point and then went, you know what? And another thing. One of the problems, I think, is that I'm not getting what I want. And your wife went, you know what I think the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. Hey, Dad, you know what I think the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. In fact, can we practice this for a minute? Could you just take out your finger? I want you to point it to me or someone next to you and go, you know what the problem is? Oh, come on, let me hear you. You're in a fight, remember? You're trying to prove your point. You know what the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. So when you're in the middle of a conflict or you're about to lose control, what if we were able to stop and be completely honest with ourselves and come to the conclusion that James comes to? Part of the problem, not all of it, because people still need to take responsibility for their actions, but the root of what we're dealing and feeling is that we're not getting what we want. Now, before we go any further, let me say this. If you're sitting here thinking, my husband needs to hear this. I wish my teenager was here. I'm going to make him watch this. That's the issue. You go, but they need to hear the sermon. Really? That's what James would say. Really? You don't get it. Because as soon as we own our part of the problem, I'm telling you, the conflict and the arguments and all of that will decrease. Now, the reason why we resist this is because when we own at least part of the problem, we lose the ability to convince the other person why they're wrong. And we don't want that. And the reason why we don't want that is because there's something that we want and we're not getting it. That's why the best defense is no defense. And again, the reason why it's hard to stop in the middle of a conflict is because we lose that leverage. But if everyone in your family would begin to own this and begin to live this, the conflict in your family would greatly decrease. Now, the other problem is that no one wants to go first. But if you want to see this happen in your family, men, you're going to have to lead the way. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it's very difficult as a dad and a husband to lead the way, because I would rather blame Darlene. I would rather blame my kids because I feel empowered. I feel justified. But not me, because if I take responsibility, I lose leverage. And I'm just going to tell you up front, I don't like to admit that I'm deep down inside selfish. But when I'm honest with myself and I look at what the conflict is about, it's because I want something. Now, the other pushback to this is, as I mentioned earlier, is Eric, he promised. I'm not asking for the moon here, but he stood at an altar and made vows. He said, till death do us part. I'm sorry, but it's the same thing. I want him to keep his promise, and I'm not getting what he wants. And so those extreme circumstances, just imagine if you were able to pause during one of those circumstances where it's heated and it's tense, and you were able to pause and think, you know what, part of the reason why we're in this is, and part of the reason why I'm angry is because I want something from him, I want something from her, I want something from them, and I'm not getting it. I mean, this could be so powerful. Now, he doesn't end there. Look what else he says. He finishes out, he says, you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God. Now, this is so powerful. Now, listen, if you're here, you're watching online, and you're not a Christian, everything that I've been saying up to this point will work for you, okay? You don't even have to believe God. In fact, if maybe you're watching online and you're not with your family, or you're here and you wouldn't call yourself a Christ follower, you could earn some real big brownie points by going home today and going, hey, family, guess what I'm thinking? I'm thinking one of the reasons why we have so many fights is because I'm not getting what I want. I mean, they'll go, Dad, honey, you're amazing. So I've just helped you out with your relationships. But this next part is for people who are mainly Christ followers. Now, he says it because it's not something as Christ followers that I gotta do this. No, he says it because he knows we ultimately deep down inside care. Even though we might say we don't, we do. And he cares for us, okay? So he says, for the sake of the relationship, instead of, in the middle of a conflict saying, you know what the part of the problem is? I'm not getting what I want. He's saying, did it ever occur to you before the argument started? Before you go raging in, before you go sulking around, before you go in there and rip the covers off your teenagers at night because they didn't take out the trash like you told them to? Did it ever occur to you to get on your knees and say, God, I really need my son to make better friends. God, I need my daughter to break up with her loser boyfriend. God, if my husband could find a job that paid more money, a lot of the fights we wouldn't have the problems that we have. Did it ever occur to you to ask God? Did it ever occur to you before you go to extract something from someone else that they probably don't have anyway? Did it ever occur to you to ask God, say, God, I'm trying to get something that I want from my mom. I'm trying to get something that I want from my dad, from my husband, from my wife, and I'm not getting it. You think, no, I don't pray that because I get so mad that if I prayed, it'd be more like, God, give me the things that I want. God, could you just give him a job so he could move out? God, could you find her a husband so I don't have to deal with the drama anymore? James says you have not because you ask not. Now, some of you, I know you do this. You do this. You pray. You pray, you say, God, she's coming home in a few minutes from college, and I know I need to have this conversation with her, and I know my desire, my inclination is to get what I want, but God, I don't want to do that. I want the things that you want for us. I want to see things the way you see things. And you know what? Your conversation goes better. You know why? Because you own the problem. Because you said, God, not the way I see it, the way you see it. That's what we want. When you do that, what you're acknowledging is part of the problem, God, is I want what I want. So here's the question that I want to ask you that I think Scrooge is discovering right now. Is who's suffering because you're not getting what you want? Who's suffering because you're not getting what you want? Who is under the pressure to change, to get skinny, to work out more, to make more money, to behave better, to live up to your expectations, to make you happy? Who's suffering because you're not getting your way? Who's suffering because they're not getting your approval? In fact, some of you have a young adult children, they don't even live at home anymore, and they're still trying to make you happy. In fact, you can feel it when they come over for Christmas, and they can feel it. Because they're still trying to win your approval. They're still trying to meet your expectations. So let me ask you this question. As we go into the holidays, what could you do to alleviate this tension? Do you send an email before they arrive? Do you send a letter? Do you text them, or even better, a phone call? Or something in person to alleviate that pressure? Because you've come to the conclusion that the reason why we've had all this conflict for our whole life is because I wanted something from you or for you, and I didn't get what I wanted. Could you imagine if every family who calls themselves Christ followers could just pause before this storm that we call Christmas and just say, God, before I start that conversation, before everybody comes home, I just want to recognize that there's things that I want I'm not getting, and that's the source of my conflict. So God, I want that thing that wants what I want to be dealt with in here before I try to deal with it out here. Could you imagine what this present Christmas could look like if you began to own that part of the reason why there's conflict in your family is because there's something that you want and you're not getting it? Could you imagine the peace that it would bring to your family if you owned that truth? Imagine what your future Christmases would look like if you no longer had to have the excuse, I don't care.
Spirit, I don't believe I've met anybody like you before.
Ebenezer, there's one more thing you need to see.
Oh, no. No, Spirit, come with me, please. I fear the future the most. I fear it won't do him any good to change now.
You'll have to come back next week to discover, like Scrooge, what your future Christmas could look like. So what causes fights and quarrels among you? It's because we want something and we're not getting it. Imagine what your future could look like if you refuse to give your happiness over to people that you're in conflict with. Imagine what your future could look like if you were willing to own this truth. I'm not willing, there's something I want and I'm not getting it. See, today, and you just can decide that you do care. And you care by owning that this idea. Would you bow your heads? Those watching online, maybe you could bow right there in front of your TV or computer. Heavenly Father, it's, this is a heavy thing to look at ourselves. But there's truth in your word. And I think every one of us here, if we paused and looked at ourselves and looked at our conflict, it's usually because I'm not getting what I want. So as we move into this holidays and the tension that we have with the people that we love the most, God, I pray that we would go in with an open mind and an open heart, and we would be able to examine ourselves and say, God, there's issues inside me that I want what I want, and I'm not getting it. And so I want to go into the holidays with an open heart, and I want to see things the way you see things. And Lord, I want the best for our relationship, so I'm willing to own this truth. I'm willing to forget about the things that I want and place other people first because the relationships are better. God, I thank you not only for a great Christmas season this year, but it will change all of our future Christmases. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, if you would, the band's up here. We're going to go into some worship. And it is a great day to be worshiping Jesus, isn't it?
You'll stand and join us as we sing. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. A man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. But you came along and you put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing is better than you. Not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountains is the God of the valley. Your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing is turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. Oh! You turn grace into garden. You turn bones into honor. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn grace into garden. You turn bones into honor. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn grace into garden. You turn bones into army. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
We're going to do something with a little bit more of a Christmas sound now.
We all know it, so let's have some fun, guys. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the earth, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rock seals and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness.
That's all I have to say. He makes our lives right, and I'm so grateful for this time of year. You guys can have a seat. He is good. He is the one that we rely on to be able to even make those decisions like Eric was talking about today. And I'm so grateful for him. I hope you guys are too. I just want to share a little bit more joy with you. You guys, because of you guys, you brought an incredible amount of joy into Defuniak Springs this weekend. Did you know that? You know, we didn't even know that. We didn't know that that's where Secret Santa Fund was going to be over the weekend. And what happened was, because of your giving, they were actually able to leverage the giving we had, that we had given them, along with others, and over $8,000 worth of Christmases were paid for families who are in need. How amazing is that? And part of that is all because of the 40 days of cheer and goodwill that we've been involved in, and you guys have really just stepped it up to the plate. And I just want to say thank you again so much. Actually, they're going to be somewhere else tonight in an undisclosed location, but it's specifically targeted for families who are in need. And I can't wait to hear about it. How about you guys? It's going to be amazing. We'll let you know more about that next week. You know, we've chosen to bring hope to local charities underneath this, and you guys have just continued to give and have been so generous. But it's what you guys are all about. It's about leaving a legacy, and it's about making an impact, and it's just, you guys are great at it. So I just want to say thank you so much again, and remind you that we are a church who believes in irrational generosity. And what that means is that in a moment, we're going to pass the buckets. And when we do, if you are an adult who is in significant need of food, shelter, or clothing, you have our permission to reach into that bucket if there's loose cash and take that loose cash to help meet your need, because we believe it's God's anyway. Does that sound good? So as you guys get ready to give, I want to give you a moment to just check out the ways to give up on the screen. But also, while we're passing the buckets, just check out another way that you guys made an impact this weekend by engaging in the Christmas parades and just bringing a bunch of cheer and hope and goodwill towards people. So check it out.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all.
Scrooge Dilemma.
Oh, look at this.
Presented by Shoreline Church. Just like Scrooge during Christmas, we may find ourselves haunted by the ghosts of our past, present, and future. But it's going to take irrational generosity to discover the cheer and goodwill of this holiday season.
Oh, judges, make note of this.
Wow.
Look at this. This is spectacular.
You see
My
all the work
favorite
that went into
Christmas
this?
movie of all time is A Christmas Carol. You have the ghost
That's
of Christmas
amazing.
past. You have the ghost of the future. Well done, my friend. Thank you.
I don't know, I'm pretty sure that after this series is over, we're all going to have enough of Graham's legs. That's all. It's been a lot of fun. Anyhow, thanks again. And, you know, through this 40 days of cheer and goodwill, we've been asking you guys to do 3 things: to give, to engage, and invite. And I've already told you all about your giving. It's been amazing. But the way that you can engage today, if you are here for the first time, we have a connection card that we would love to connect with you. There's a connection card on the back of all of the seats in here. And you can grab one of those and fill it out and just let us know a little bit about you. And if you have a prayer request, we would love to pray for you this week. And actually, if you're here on a regular basis and you have a prayer request, that's a great way for us to stay connected to what your needs are. And what you can do is, when the service is over in just a moment, you can come over to one of these community boxes. They're not lit up right now. Typically they are, but if you can see them, there's little boxes over here. There's people over here who would love to chat with you. You bring that Connect card over there, and they'll pray with you right then if you want, or just answer any questions that you might have. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate that. Also, we have a goal engagement today. So we said give, engage, invite. You can engage with your connection card, but you can also engage by picking up one of these Christmas ornaments that we have out in the lobby. Today, our goal, I think we have just over 40 of these left, but our goal is to get rid of them today because each one represents a child in foster care, and it would be their Christmas gifts for Christmas. So if you can stop by the Christmas tree and purchase one of these, that would be amazing. You're going to really be helping out a family that's in need right now. And lastly, invite. Next week, bring your friends out next week. It's going to be a really happy, fun Sunday next week, and we're going to get to see what's going on with Scrooge and how things turn around for him, hopefully. And we want to invite you there, but also just let you know a couple of other things. We are having a Christmas Eve service, and those are on the invite cards that are on your seat. So you make sure to be thinking about who you want to invite to Christmas Eve. And then lastly, that our service after Christmas on the 26th will be online. So just stay at home, stay in your PJs. You can watch church online at 9 a.m. on Facebook, okay? You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
It takes grit to commit to square up to every giant and every challenge. It takes vision to see opportunities and act before.
Humbug. You'd think you've seen Scrooge before, but you've never seen him like this.
Bah. Humbug.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to announce we are having our end of season Grub Club party here at the Harbor Tavern. So the whole point of doing Grub Club is for us to serve our community with no strings attached. a way to serve those who serve others.
We actually had COVID in the beginning of August, and somebody from Grubhub brought lunch to our house that week.
It's a one-of-a-kind experience. Thank you, Shoreline Church.
Get you through the day. Those pub subs, A1. Keep doing what you're doing. You're saving the community.
So at the camping trip, we went in the water, and the water was yucky at the bottom. It was very slimy. It was like when you take a gummy bear and soak it in water.
The mud was pretty weird, not gonna lie.
We were able to hang out with people and have community.
My favorite part was the axe throwing. It was a lot of fun. I was able to get it stuck in the target in my second try. That was a lot of fun.
We threw axes, we threw Ninja Star,